Welcome to Equilibrium Live. I am Sarah Téibo, and this is episode 5. I can't believe we've been doing this for 5 weeks now. When we started, I had no idea where we were going, but here we are today, episode 5 of Equilibrium. And in these sessions, we talk about music business, music ministry, and finding the balance between the two. And I'm very passionate about helping other independent artists like myself, Christian and gospel independent artists, to navigate the very confusing sometimes terrain of music business. Today we're going to be talking about music publishing, licensing, and the metadata that makes all these things work, that holds it all together. And I know sometimes it can sound a bit geeky, so we're going to go into a lot of detail. Get your pen and paper, your tea, coffee, orange juice, popcorn, whatever it is. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's get some knowledge together. Now, today I'm joined by some very, very esteemed and exceptionally knowledgeable guys on the topic of publishing, licensing, and metadata. I've got Moir, who is one of the UK Christian and gospel music legends, literally, and he has done A&R from Kingsway to Integrity, and now he's doing independent consulting and mentoring and coaching, and he's also a producer, and I'm going to let him introduce himself a bit more as well. And Keith Kirk, who is a great friend of mine. He's a metadata specialist. He's worked in the music industry for many years, from Sony to other reputable organizations. And I will also let him introduce himself in a bit more detail. But before you start introducing yourselves, as I always do every week on these sessions, I'm going to ask you a trivia question. So brace yourselves. So you answer the question and then you'll introduce yourself, or vice versa. What is your pet peeve when it comes to driving, or what is your least favorite driving maneuver?
What?
I'll let you go first, Keith, or Les, whoever. Your pet peeve when it comes to driving, or your least favorite driving maneuver?
Keeping to the speed limit.
Is your least favorite thing?
That's my least favorite.
Okay.
I have to be very careful.
I would never have said you'd be that person who likes speeding.
No, I would just there's a big discipline for me, just to stay there. So and now you have to drive at 20 miles an hour. It's just my wife says I'll get out of the car and walk. So I'll get there quicker.
Yeah, fair enough.
So
okay.
In London. Oh, sorry, you're gonna talk to.
Yeah, and then introduce yourself, and then
okay.
we'll come to you, Keith. Yeah.
Okay.
Just introduce yourself a bit more, Les.
Oh yeah, you want some more?
Yeah. Yes, about yourself, because I only gave a very brief introduction about who you were. So just give us a bit more flesh about who Moir is.
Okay. Well, I was working as a musician and as a bass player, and then I became a record producer. And I worked on many albums with different artists. And one of the key things was always to go through their songs, and was to go through everyone's songs and check out they were finished. And so I've had lots of experience working with producing and recording other people's songs and the best way to present them. And so I'm really happy to be here this evening just to share that. And I live in Eastbourne. I had the joys of working with Kingsway Music, which became Integrity Music, and I'm now working actually with what's called the Word and Worship Trust, and that's helping develop the worship of the nations. So we're really calling for
a huge task.
Yeah, just the world, the world now. So, but just really, just wanting to hear the songs and the sounds from the nations, and to make them more representative in the whole global church.
Wow, that's a huge task. Well, all the best with that.
Thank you, Sarah.
And Keith, your pet peeve in terms of driving, and your least favorite driving maneuver, one or the other, and obviously introduce yourself a bit more.
Pet peeve is driving is waiting at long traffic lights. And everybody else seems to be going, and you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So that could be annoying. I've worked in music and metadata since the mid 90s, but really got into metadata around 2008. Actually started in Trinidad at the local PRO here. Then went back to London and went to Universal, Sony, BMG, 21st Century Fox, and even went to ICE in Berlin, the International Copyright Enterprise. Worked over there and then came back, and then I went to, the last place I was at Sony. And in all the places I did Metadata. So I'm a Metadata geek. I love it.
I can tell.
It's just, I can talk about it all day, all night. It's so important. So I'm really happy to be here to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you. And I was just going to say, in terms of the driving, remember we drove together up to the Midlands once. How did you like my driving? We drove back down. We hired a zip car. We went you took me to sing at an SDA church.
Oh, I think it was fun. I can't remember, so it must have been good.
I talked a lot. You must have talked a lot.
I'm glad you say that, because I know I was going over the speed limit like Les would have done.
Oh yeah. Oh my God,
goodness.
I forgot about that.
No, it's cool, but I'm really, really glad to have you guys here. And I think the topic of publishing, licensing, and metadata, as critical as they are to our success as independent artists, tend to be one of the areas where we don't know much. We are basically either misinformed or ill-informed or not informed at all in terms of what we need to know, what the fundamentals are. And I think one of the biggest areas where we just don't even know where to start is, what is publishing? What is music publishing, and why is it so important to independent artists, or even just to artists in general? So maybe, Les, you can just give us that basic 101 on what publishing is.
Yeah, I'd love to. Basically, to publish means to make known. So, and the whole thing is that if you write a song, and everyone thinks is the greatest song ever written, you want the rest of the world to hear it. And basically, that is a publisher's job. So there's two main jobs of a publisher. One is to promote your song, and the other one is to administrate it, look after all the royalties that should be due to you, that they collect for you. They make sure your song is registered properly, all different organizations, and they collect their money for you. And the publisher protects the song. The publisher stewards the song and cares for it, and just make sure that it makes, maximizes in terms of exposure, but also that it's cared for. And even, we've got this thing like with some people try to change lyrics of songs and then publishers no, and a lot of the things you have to ask the permission of the publisher for the song to be used. That's because really they're just protecting it and looking out for it. And it's just, I think, for a songwriter to have someone who's in a way is going to sell your song or take your song further than you could have done on your own. That's a great thing, because the publisher normally has many more contacts than you have, and knows a lot more people than you do, and they know artists. They know artists that are looking for songs to record on next album. And they have your song ready to share it out. So the main thing is that they look after the song. They make it known, and also they protect it for you.
And it's interesting because in today's age where it's very difficult to get a record deal in order to thrive as an artist, everyone's more or less independent. And I feel like there's this misconception that a distributor is technically a publisher. And I know that some distributors have actually started offering, some publishing services on the side. So how would you help an artist know the difference between a distributor? Because they could say, well, the distributor's making my song known, they're putting it on Spotify, they're putting it on Apple. Yeah. How is that different from a publisher? What is the publisher really going to effectively do with my song that, say, a CD Baby or a TuneCore isn't already doing? And I'm asking that question from the perspective of somebody who doesn't really know the difference between distribution and publishing, because to the naked eye, it's like, yeah, my song is on Spotify, so it's published,
Well, distribution has to do with product, and publishing has to do with the song and the copy of it. So, if you want to have more streams or sell more albums, that's what a distributor does. So they get the CD or music out as far as they can. But publisher, he looks they look after the copyright to make sure that it's that all the money that's due to it is collected. And so it's much more like an admin situation than us than trying to get the music out. It's trying to make sure it's cared for.
So they're basically looking after. So I think the key word to take away from this in terms of differentiating between the publisher and the distributor is that the publisher is looking after the song and looking out for opportunities where the song can be, in the publishing terms, exploited. That's the word that that I've learned to use it in the industry. Opportunities to exploit the song. And what would that typically look like, Keith? Because you've worked in all these, reputable organizations. What would it look like when, somebody gets a publishing deal? And obviously we're in a very niche kind of genre, Christian and gospel. And I feel like sometimes the Christian artist could be like, well, they're not going to use my worship song in a movie or in an ad. So what would that look like in reality? What could be the motivator for a Christian and gospel artist to be like, yeah, let's get a publisher who could not only look after but look out for opportunities to exploit the song? And given your experience in those organizations in the industry, it'd be interesting to see how you found that, particularly for people within our space.
Well, that's a good question. The thing about publishers is that they have relationships with all these entities, with networks, with other music publishers, with labels, with TV networks, Netflix. They have all these relationships, right? And in fact, when I worked at 21st Century Fox, I found something interesting, that they would deliver their their movies or TV shows to something called in-flight entertainment. In-flight entertainment. And I was like, in-flight entertainment, that's interesting. I was like, oh, okay. Wow, they're really going out. They've really got relationships with everybody and everything. So they even deliver their content to airlines.
Right?
And I'm sure they deliver their content to ships, and deliver their contents to all sorts of other places where there are a bunch of people at one time, to malls, to whatever. That's what publishers do. They have those relationships with those people on the back end who are responsible for licensing music for the use in their establishments, like an airline, like a ship, like a mall, like a church. Like a function, like a party that's a public party, a carnival, right? Publishers ensure that when people want to use that song for whatever reason, that they are able to license it, and you are able to be paid from that license. So I would say is that the most important thing to understand is that the publishers have relationships with all these different entities and all these different clubs and hair salons and barbershops and all of them. There's a system in place to ensure that if your music is playing in one of these places, they're retrieving the money and paying you out. So that's really because then you will have to go and have all these relationships yourself, which
you
is
couldn't.
kind of crazy, and not just locally but globally. Right, publishers have these global relationships, so that's how it works out for you as an independent artist.
But more so as a Christian or gospel independent artist, do you think that we're on the losing end, if I could call it that, because of the kind of music that we produce? I mean, there is that misconception, hence why typically artists don't really look to bother to get publishing.
No, I mean, I would say, because I've been in this situation, Sarah, where I've been privileged to be part of songs that the global church is sang. So the song, like 10,000 Reasons, Shine Jesus Shine, all those songs, I was privileged to be around when they were written. But then those songs become used by the whole church around the world. But if you want to say secular or whatever, mainstream songs, they're not used in church, and they're not sung that way. So we have just almost like a different audience.
Yeah.
And then our songs are used in a different way. Fortunately, as well, an organization called CCLI was set up, and that was to reward the songwriters who are writing the songs for the church. And so CCLI is really like the PRS for the church. So when songs are used in church and they're signed to CCLI, then the writers also receive an income from that as well. And so for many of the writers, that's been very beneficial.
And what I'll say too on that, Sarah, as well, CCLI is doing a really great work, and more needs to be known about CCLI and what they do. Because I did have a conversation recently with some people in America, and they were saying, "Well, we do a lot of these songs in our churches, but how do we collect the money? There's no, but this is in the Black community, so the gospel community, right?"
Oh, I think we've lost Keith.
He was preaching. He was just.
Oh, he was. I hope his Wi-Fi is not gone. Because I know we had the issue earlier. But I mean, to his point, talking about, where people can actually get their money for writing Christian and worship songs, there is that argument that, well, we sing all these songs, but we don't get the money. And I suspect that could be partly due to churches not reporting. But I mean, we're kind of segueing into another topic. But just to come back and stay on topic in terms of the exploitation, if you like, of Christian and gospel artists' songs. Is it still, I mean, obviously we get our songs played in church, but isn't it worth looking for opportunities for our songs to be done or published or exploited outside of church circles as well?
Definitely. I mean, even, what Keith was saying about, on flights, anywhere where you have music, and, I think we should be there as well. Yeah. And so it's really up to the publisher, to promote those places, and just not to be big thinking and where you think God's music could be.
Exactly. So effectively, I mean, we as independent Christian and gospel artists should aspire to have publishing deals, not just with the view to having our music played in church, but because there are potentials, opportunities for them to be even sung outside of church. Sorry, Keith, we lost you there, but you were talking about, the complaints around songs not being, or artists not being paid for their songs being used in church.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm probably going to have some issues. It's on Wi-Fi. I'm connected, so I don't know what's happening there. But anyway, I was saying that's not set up. But you were just saying, which I was alluding to, that we should not just think about our songs being played in church, right? There's a Hollywood director, screenwriter right now writing a movie where there's some kind of church scene. No, I'm just saying in general.
Okay.
Somebody somewhere. Yes, someone somewhere in Hollywood or in Atlanta or Tyler Perry or one of them is writing a TV show or a movie right now, and there's some kind of church scene or funeral scene or something where there's like, we need a song for this. But if your song is not out there where we can search for it, then it stands no chance of being synced or placed. So,
and I was going to come to sync as well, because that's a big question, but you've mentioned it. So, but to your point, actually, there was a day my husband and I were watching, because my husband likes all these crime detective kind of things, CSI, Criminal Minds, and all those fun stuff. And we were watching one where you just know the first scene is maybe somebody at the beach or people kayaking, and then there's a dead body. And so the first scene was somebody on a yacht, and they were having a great time just celebrating, and we recognized that it was a song from Elevation that was being played, and we're like, how did that happen? And to your point, it really goes down to having a good publisher. They probably looked for the opportunity to have their song put on the movie. So
not only just having a good publisher, music supervisors just want a good song. It doesn't matter the genre.
Yes, they just want.
It's about, I love this song. This song fits in this scene. That's it.
You're right. You're so right.
And they often say, don't write songs for placing. Just write a good song. That's it.
Very good, Keith.
Don't say, oh, this song, I'm going to write a song and this song will fit good with this movie or this scene. Don't do that. Just write a good song. And that song will then fit into wherever it needs to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you need someone, though. You need someone to take that song.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And suggest it or play it to someone. And that's really what the publisher does.
Yes.
Speaking of the publisher, because obviously if I were a publisher, which I'm not, but if I were a publisher and I had an artist and I had all these connections, in high places, and I knew things were happening, or I knew a movie was coming, or I knew some endorsement was coming, or some new ad or whatever, I would be looking to get my artist to write to those things. So I know, Keith, you just said don't write for X or Y, but wouldn't it be advisable for a publisher to actually, if they had, like the foresight or the inside knowledge of something coming, to get their artist to write to that, and then they can put that song towards that project? Wouldn't that be something that any publisher should be looking to do?
Yes, they do. They do say that, when a music supervisor is looking for music, they're looking for keyword. They're looking via keywords, right? So they're looking for energetic, strong, meditative, reflective, calm, smooth, whatever. They're looking at those sort of words on a database, and that database will pull up the songs that relate to those keywords, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, but if you are a publisher and you have people, writers, or you've signed writers on your roster, they can say, okay, this new movie is coming up, whatever. There's a scene, we need a song that has this energetic. It's this, it's that, it's dark, it's whatever, and then you do that. But that's different from an artist just writing to a movie, which an artist can do as well. But a lot of time they just say, just write from your heart. Yeah, just write naturally. And that's a better way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. For those who are watching on Facebook and YouTube, I can see your comments, especially on YouTube. So thanks for joining, and thanks for engaging. Please share the link to this with other people as well, so they can benefit. We're going to be digging into a lot more meat now on the topic. So get your pens and papers, and let's keep diving into this. Now, there's one thing that tends to be a bit confusing: neighborhood rights and sync licensing. And sometimes we don't know what they both mean or what they both stand for. So can we get some more insight into what neighborhood rights mean, and why is it even called neighborhood rights and sync licensing?
You go for that, Keith.
Well, I'll touch on sync licensing. It's actually neighboring rights.
Neighboring. I said neighborhood. I'm displaying my ignorance. I'm not a pro. I am so not a pro on this topic. So there.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Neighboring rights. Yeah.
Don't be feel that way, because the music business is vast and there's so much to it. You're going to forget stuff. You're going to mix up stuff. I do it, so it's fine. Neighboring rights is essentially the rights from the producer, or the rights from other people, or it's just different types of rights that are attached to a song, right? That you don't really think about. We think about the composition, we think about the sound recording, but there's tons of other rights attached to that song, which is referred to as neighboring rights. And then sync is simply the official word, meaning is tethering or attaching music to moving images, right? Attaching a song to moving images. That's at the basis of what it means, basically.
And the reason I asked that question is because sometimes particularly about the neighboring rights, when we have a song out, we ideally, when we're going to come to the admin, but we ideally would have splits where you know how much each person who wrote the song contributed to the song, potentially what the producers, share of the song is potentially, and things like that. Now, if one artist has a publisher and they wanted to use a song in whatever, a movie or in an airplane or in a supermarket, how do the other, presumably neighboring rights, affect another person's ability to use a song? Or has it not got anything to do with the writers, but only with the copyright owner of the song?
Yeah, well, the copyright owner or the publisher would look after all that. So they look after making sure everyone gets their split.
But if one person has a publishing deal and the others don't, would the publisher be looking after everyone in the everyone who composed the song?
The publisher would only look after, can only send the money where where the song's been registered.
Yes. So if there are 4 people and one person with that publisher, then that publisher will administer the publishing for that songwriter, because they can't do that on behalf of someone that's not signed up with them.
Correct.
Right? How that would look contractually, that could be a nightmare. And that's that that could be, you know, well, you can do this, but you can't do this. You got exclusions, you got that, you got this, you got this, so many other things. So that is for you probably need to get a entertainment lawyer to really hash out how that works. So like three of us, one of us is with a publisher. We've all written this song. One is with a publisher. Three of us isn't. How will that work? I don't know the intricacies of that really, but all I can say is that the publisher will look after their person. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is to sign a song with PRS, I mean, as soon as possible as well, just so, you know, until you find a publisher. I mean, Sarah, what did you do when you were independent?
I am independent.
Without publisher. I know you're an independent artist. I'm talking about writing. Talking about writing.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, Les is trying to get it out of me. I know what you're doing, Les. I know what you're doing. Well, guys, basically today I just signed a publishing deal, and it so happens that today we're talking about publishing.
Congratulations,
I just happened to sign a publishing deal today, so but I've been doing a lot of research myself, trying to understand, you know, the ins and outs, and I'm still learning. There's so much to learn, it's crazy. But I mean, previously I was just, and I still am signed with PRS. But the thing is, with PRS, you're only getting, you know, money for the composition, but not the mechanics, which is what the mechanics, which is the engine, which is what the engine, which is what the MCPS side of things is for, and that's where the publisher then collects on your behalf. And I think that is an area where a lot of artists are leaving money on the table, because we can't register with MCPS as publishers, because effectively it would have made sense if we were selling physical CDs and we were a label and we had to pay, you know, different people whatever their entitlement was for the song. With streaming, it's really hard to get any reasonable amount of money as an MCPS member. That's my understanding anyway. But having a publisher just removes all of that responsibility from the artist, and the publisher can just manage the MCPS side of things. And as you say, as you guys have already said earlier, they have more clout, they have more reach, so they can potentially collect not just from PRS but from all the other PROs globally. So it's a great thing. But the reason I asked that question though is because this idea of having a publisher represent one songwriter on a song still begs the question of the copyright owner, because 1 million people could write a song, but one person owns the copyright of the song, right? The person who put their money. So if it was a label, the label who put their money towards the creation of the product or the sound recording owns the copyright, the sound recording copyright. There are a number of different copyrights. Maybe we should talk about the different kinds of copyright there are, and then we can explain who owns what.
I think if you're going to concentrate on publishing, you should talk about the song. And that, and so the product is a whole another thing.
Right.
So that's where the, you know, hopefully we can clear up that slight confusion, bring clarity to that. And what we're talking about is the songwriter, and then the song reaching it almost like its maximum potential, and how can a publisher help that? So I was thinking earlier, I was going to just tell this little story about you know, this song Rain, you know, written by Noel Robertson and Donna Akuda. Then obviously we had signed that to Integrity, and then what happened was there's this worship leader in America called Leland, and then Leland came to us and he said, I would really like to record some international worship songs. Can you recommend some songs? So as a publisher, we recommended 5 songs to him, and one of them was Rain, and the other one was Waymaker, and he recorded both those songs. And then he took these songs into especially, well, he took them into America, but that was through a publisher championing those songs.
The songs, right.
Yeah. So and that is happening all the time. All the time, people are asking, even like, you know, TV programs like Songs of Praise or whatever. Do you have a suitable song? Do you have a song that we can use? And so the publishers, it's like, and you know, in the Bible talks about the storehouse owner. who brings out treasures old and new. And that's what you're like. You're like a storehouse owner. You got this chest full of amazing songs, and you just bring them out at the right time, and keep representing them. And we have also the privilege of looking after How Great Thou Art.
Oh wow!
And so that song was just used everywhere, everywhere. But there's actually a Stuart Hine Trust, and they just look after that song because there's so many people
Just
want
that
to
one
use
song.
It. Yeah.
Wow.
So many people want to use it, and also they want to change the lyrics, or
of course, yes.
They want to translate it, so we have to look after, make sure the translations are right.
Right.
All those things. So there's so much more, everyone believes in the song. Let's run with it, and let's get out as far as we can. But let's make sure it's protected and looked after.
I think one key thing, if anyone's watching, to take away is when it comes to publishing, and I'm also learning this, is it's specific to the song, the composition. So the conversation around publishing, from what I'm hearing, is not really about anything other than the song, effectively.
The
you can have other pardon?
The lyrics and the melody.
Correct. The lyrics and the melody that make up the song. So you could have conversations about other things, who owns the copyright to the sound recording and all of that. But the song itself, when it comes to publishing, that is what the focus is. The lyrics and the melody, the composition of the song. Guys, if you're on Facebook or YouTube and you have questions as well, please put your questions in the comment section. We'd love to take them. I mean, the last 4.5 weeks we've literally had the comment section blowing up with questions. So, and I'm sure you have some interesting questions. Now, talking about metadata, right? So we have a metadata specialist today. I know that all of these fun things cannot happen without certain things being in place, and that's the admin side of things.
Very good.
So that's the part that, speaking for artists, we don't like. I mean, my album is coming out at the end of July, cheeky plug. And last week I was saying to my husband, I was literally holding my head and saying to my husband, I am not looking forward to the admin I have to do this week. And he was like, oh God, I know you're going to be up all night, literally, because it's so intricate, it's so detailed. You have to get everything right. You have to remember what needs to go where on all the different platforms. So admin is my personal nightmare. Keith. Help us here.
I love it. Okay, so
I know you do.
Today I was talking with someone and I said, you have to think of yourself as like an Apple or an Android or Facebook. And these companies are bringing out new products all the time, right? So if you're bringing out this new product, you want to prep it for the market. You've got to do market research. You've got to make sure that when it hits the market, it hits with a bang. You've got to do all the prep work and the design and the, everything has to be prepped before you release this song to the market. You have to prep the song for the market. And I coined a phrase a few weeks ago that says, your success in music is directly determined and proportionately predicated on the quality of your metadata.
Yes, I concur 100%. I totally agree. Yeah.
All your success in music is 100% predicated on the quality of your music. And let me give an example. Because the music business is a digital space now, right? When algorithms are looking for things all the time, the algorithms is looking for it. Algorithms is looking for your ISRC, your ISWC, your ISNI, your IPN. It's looking for your mood descriptions. It's looking for tags. It's looking for your lyrics. It's looking for splits. It's looking for the name. Looking for the person who owns this song. And if any pieces of those metadata, any pieces of those data are missing, and the algorithm doesn't find it, you're basically missing an opportunity for a stream.
That's right.
Basically, because it's looking for certain things, and if it doesn't find it, it's just going to skip over to the next song that has the thing it's looking for.
Yeah.
Right. So when Spotify is algorithmically the algorithms are trying to create like a new, it's creating a new early mornings playlist, and it's looking for keywords like calm, laid back, soft, this, that, the other, and you don't have those mood descriptions in your song or embedded in your metadata, it's just going to pass it. Which means you've missed an opportunity to have your song in that playlist. And let me tell you something else. Algorithms look for BPM and song key as well. BPM, right? Beats per minute is looking for that because it's going to want to match the BPM with the other songs in the playlist.
Yeah.
If it cannot find the BPM of your song, well, now with algorithms, it can detect what the BPM is, right? But if it can't find it for whatever reason, it's just going to skip over to the next song that has the BPM in the metadata, right? But metadata permeates the entire music business. It does not work without metadata. So publishing, everything from publishing, sync, everything, it's everything. And this is why I have kind of dedicated my career to really educating musicians and artists and songwriters about metadata, because that's chiefly what is used in the music business to pay out and to for discoverability. And because the music business is so digital right now, everything's going to voice search. So if I'm sitting in the car, I'm like, oh, could you play me a song from Sarah Téibo? And the metadata is not there. It's not going to find your song. Or could you play me a song like this? What's going to happen when they say, can you play me a song like this? Whatever, it's going to play you or play someone like you, and then it's going to recommend, oh, well, maybe you like Sarah Téibo as well.
Yeah, that's what happens in the playlist. Yeah.
That's only because of metadata, right? It's everything. And then, of course, metadata is key to payments, right? That's why there was $2 billion in something called a black box of unallocated, unclaimed royalties.
Yeah,
$2 billion. Now, the MLC in America has just set up Mechanical Licenses Collective, which set up by the MMA, the Music Modernization Act of 2018. They set up the MLC to take some of that money out of the black box and actually pay artists, $424 million to be exact, right? But you have till the end of the year to ensure that you have no money in that black box. So you got to check out the MLC to ensure that any money that you may have missed is not there, or else by the end of the year, it's gone for good.
Okay.
Right? Now, the MLC is an American organization. They only collect for USA use, and they only take they only pay out for Americans. However, like if you're with the MCPS, etc., and certain companies like that in your country, those like MCPS is a pay source to the MLC, right? So the MLC and vice versa. So if you're with MCPS and the MLC matches revenue to your song or to your track or to you, the MLC will pay that out to the MCPS, and MCPS will pay you.
That's right. Or the publisher, if your publisher is within.
Yes, that's if everything is registered, the metadata is there, is everything correct. And lastly, I'd say a lot of times you have people with the same names, right? So there's 100,000 Sarahs out there. There's 100,000 Les's out there, and there's probably even more thousands of Keiths out there. How do you distinguish between? How does the music business distinguish between this Sarah and another Sarah? Well, there's something called the ISNI code, the International Standard Name Identifier, right? Which, if you go on there and you look at Rihanna's ISNI code, it's amazing. They have her name, different spellings of her name, the wrong spelling of her name. They even have Riri in there. And then they have different translations in Indian writing, Chinese writing, Mandarin, everything. And that's just like to say, okay, if a revenue report comes in and you see this name, the scribbly thing, that's Rihanna. Pay her money, please. Right? So metadata is not something to be taken lightly. It's boring. It's like watching paint on the wall dry. But that paint gets you money.
It does.
When you don't have that in place, you are missing out on so many things. So
yes,
I'll stop there.
excellent, Keith.
Yeah. And I mean, in terms of as independent artists, right? Because if you look at it from our perspective, we only have so much in terms of access to a number of platforms. At least we can start with PRS and PPL, and then obviously when we get publishing, we can be looking at MCPS and all the others. For worship leaders, we should be looking at CCLI at the very least, maybe multi-tracks if we're writing songs for church. Now, the metadata that artists need to have, I would imagine we have ISRC, but if somebody was just coming fresh and like, okay, so I need to have all this metadata, what exactly do I mean, I have, you don't want to see my spreadsheet, but I was speaking on behalf of those who don't know what data to collect or what data to create and to begin to have a repository of or a catalog of. So what should somebody coming in fresh start looking to create and collect in terms of metadata?
Okay, so if you go to my website, motifmusicservices.com, MOTIF for Freddie, musicservices.com, scroll down, sign up, and it will email a free metadata sheet for you.
Can you say that again? I'm going to type it in the comments.
MOTIF, musicservices.com.
Music services.
You scroll down to the bottom, sign up, and the free metadata sheet will be emailed to you. That has every single thing on it that you need to know. That basically you need to fill out that sheet completely before you take your music anywhere online, anywhere, release the music anywhere. You have to have all those things in place, right? And also there's some other things that people miss. So when you have a song, let's say you have a song that's 4 minutes 39 seconds. Any song that's over 3 minutes or 3 minutes 30 must have a radio edit. Any song. Once it's over 3 minutes and 3 minutes or 3 minutes 30 seconds, it's gone over that thing. There must be a radio edit, meaning it must fall within 3 minutes and 3 minutes 30. That's because radio stations, especially in America, they have a 15-minute window in an hour. So every 15 minutes, they have to fill as many songs into that 15 minutes plus ads to reach a specific demographic. If your song is over 3 minutes long, automatically not choosing your song. So if that specific song is 4 minutes 39 or 4:45, you know already before you leave the studio, get the producer to do a radio edit version that's 3 minutes or 3 minutes and 30 seconds, no more than that. Right?
And does that song have its own unique ISRC code different from the extended version?
Very good question. Yes. Every song must have its own ISRC code. So just think about Amazing Grace. What was the song that you just called? How Great Thou Art? Right? How Great Thou Art has one composition, which means the PRO is going to assign that an ISWC code, right? One ISWC code. But How Great Thou Art has thousands of recordings.
That's it.
Thousands of recordings. And each of those recordings must have its own ISRC code.
Yes.
Must. That is so critical and so important. And even if you do one song, so you got that song, you got a clean version, explicit version, instrumental, extended. This is the same song, right? Original motion picture soundtrack version, theatrical version, remix, blah, 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 blah. That they must all have their own individual ISRC codes. There's a reason for this. And you never, ever, 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 there's never a reason to change that ISRC code.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Never a reason. Now, yes, there are some cases where frontline artists are remastering or reissuing or redoing something with their catalog. They can do that, right? But you're an indie artist. There's no reason for you to ever change, because a lot of people say, oh, well, I put this song out. I think I want to take it down and re-release it, right? Release it if there's no change to the song whatsoever. Re-release it with the same ISRC code. But if you've made some changes, even if it's a minute longer, there must be a new ISRC code. Very important. Yeah.
So just to circle back to the point you made, Sorry, when were you going to say something, Les?
No, I was just saying this is excellent, Keith, what you're saying.
Yeah.
And it's so important. And obviously the publisher, this is one of their the things they're best at, is making sure everything is registered correctly. And that's what they do the best.
Yep. Yeah. That's their job.
And just to circle back to the point you made about radio edits, I want to probably get you to reiterate something just so that we're clear on what you're saying. Are you saying every single song needs to have a radio edit, or the songs that you shop to radio should have a radio edit? Because we want to be clear on that.
Yes. Only the songs that you shop to the radio. If you're not releasing that song to the radio or anything like that, it's just on the album. No need to have a radio edit for that. But if the songs that you're delivering to the radio or taking to the radio, yes, must be within a certain time frame. 2 minutes 30, 2:45, even better. But if it's 3:15, 3:20, that's the best place for that radio edit to be because it's thousands and thousands of songs are played every week, right? And they're they have to fit you in a really, really small window. So you want to make sure and get it in there. Also, especially in America, I don't know about the UK as well. When you're sending, and that's why I said go to my website and download that sheet. When you're sending your music to a radio station, and I've been on Clubhouse and talking to a lot of radio DJs, and they say people will send us music. I don't know the name. I don't know the song.
We had an entire episode on this. Right. So the very first episode of Equilibrium was actually about radio versus Spotify, and we went to town on the topic. So if you're watching and you're wondering what this is about, go and watch episode 1 of Equilibrium Live, and you'll get the full gist on the protocol, if you like, of sending music to radio. But if you wanted to say anything on that, please go ahead. I mean, to know that we've covered that. But
just as I said, think of yourself as a manufacturer, and you're creating products. If you're sending your product out for someone to use, it must have the label on it, the name of it, the contents, what it's called, the brand
ingredients,
the ingredients, everything must be there. So if you just send this bottle and it's blank, I don't know what this is. It's the same thing with music. You've got to send all the information, especially the ISRC codes, because now in America, they have systems in the radio stations, the DJs, where they are required to enter the ISRC codes, and those systems deliver that play to the PROs automatically.
Right?
They're required by law to do this. So if you're sending in your stuff, you have to have all the metadata. It must be a radio edit, and sometimes it's good to separate all your tracks. So you have the vocals, the instrumental, etc., because sometimes they want to play the song in the background, the instrumental's playing. That is a stream or a play. You will still get royalties for that once it's playing. So with those songs that you're sending out, 3 things: have the metadata, have the tracks broken up so that the instrumental, the lead. And also, guys, especially when it comes to online, and I'm chopping and changing because there's so much to get in. Lyrics. Every time you write your song, please enter the lyrics embed the lyrics in the MP3 or the WAV, and also online. You've got Genius.com, you've got Lyric Find, you've got Music's Match. There's so many platforms online where you can enter your lyrics on, right? When you enter your lyrics, the standard way is you don't put verse 1 lyrics, chorus lyrics, verse 2 lyrics, right? You only put the lyrics. So first verse, just the lyrics, space, chorus, space, second verse, space, right? There's a reason for that. That's the standard way. And the reason for putting up lyrics online is that sometimes I'm hearing a really good song. I've heard this line over and over and over, but I have no idea who the artist is. I can simply go on Google and type that line, and it's going to bring that artist up. Right? So that's a good way of being discovered. There's another part of your metadata, having the lyrics for every song appear online somewhere so that, it's going to attach to the artist. Yeah.
And I think that's where the publisher comes in as well, because the publisher could either advise or assist with the admin, because that is part of the admin that, needs to be covered off in the role of the publisher / administrator of the song.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Go on, Les.
Yeah, so I was just going to add about the different agreements of publishing.
Yes, yeah.
So I think it might be a good time to introduce that.
Yeah.
Because you can have like an admin agreement.
Yeah.
So the publisher, like we're talking about, Keith, that's purely what they do. They just look after registering it right and collecting your money and then passing it on. So that's an admin. And then what is called as the publishing agreement, where the publisher does both in terms of the collect, but they also promote your song.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's been a little bit of confusion because people, obviously, the percentage for admin agreement is smaller, and that looks more attractive. But but then the song doesn't get promoted, and they're expecting the publisher to promote that.
Yeah.
So now there's been some intermediate, if you want to call them, agreements, where the publisher will sign an admin agreement, but if there's any activity on one of the songs that they've promoted, then that percentage will increase for that song.
Yeah.
So, but just don't when you see an admin agreement, you think, oh, that's really good because
And I mean, for those who probably don't know what kind of percentages to expect, because at the end of the day, when people start having these conversations, they might look at a contract and go, "Oh my goodness, what's this?" So, what typically? I'm not saying that's definitely black and white, but what typically would be the percentages to expect for an admin versus a publishing agreement?
So, admin would be anywhere between 10 and 20, so 15%, and then probably for a full publishing agreement, it's more like 60-40. Anywhere, around those kind of figures. So,
and do they carry on? Sorry.
No, it's fine. Go on.
I was just going to say, and do they tend to last a certain period? I've heard of people having lifetime agreements. What kind of terms or durations would be typical for these kind of agreements?
So lifetime agreements, that was kind of, I would say older agreements. And then there was a company called Cobalt arrived, and then it kind of revolutionized publishing.
Yeah.
And so now their agreements were much shorter, and also there's a whole thing where the songwriter never knew how much they were going to get paid till their check arrived. So every 6 months or a quarter, their check would arrive, but they would never know how much that was going to be. And then Cobalt put in this system where you can go online and you can see what money is coming to you.
Yeah.
So through technology, metadata, everything, things have really improved and it become much more equal in terms, and like it should be, a partnership between the songwriter and the publisher.
So Sony has a similar system where you can literally go in the back end and you can see exactly where your songs have been streaming, what the demographic, what countries, everywhere in real time. So there, as Les says, they've been, because of technology, they've been really transparent. It's a team thing. I want you all to see exactly what's happening with your music and stuff like that. Another thing in those admin agreements, sometimes even if, like, let's say it's a 3-year deal, sometimes they may continue for a year after to collect the rest of the money.
Oh yeah, because it does take time, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So even after the period, they may stay on with you for about 12 months and make sure you get all the money, and then it's officially finished.
And I know one question that might be on people's lips or in their minds is, how does one even find a publisher? How do you go? Do you just go on Google and be like, Christian publishers or music publishers? How do people actually go about finding publishers, or do they get approached by publishers? How does it typically work?
Generally, they would get approached. So, and obviously for 30 years I was working as A&R, and so part of my role was to, they call it song finders, was to find the songs, and we have this line: dig, discover, and develop. So we would dig around, and then we'd discover, wow, this is a great song, and then we'd find out who wrote the song.
Yeah.
And then part of the publisher's job is also to develop the songwriter. So once you've found the songwriter and you think, oh, this guy's got a lot of potential, so then you start to coach them, go through their songs. And also what's been happening a lot recently is that a young songwriter is put with a more experienced songwriter to collaborate, and so and then those guys grow in that. So and that's part of a publisher's role to see the development, and then you know, publishing companies usually they have a lot of songwriting camps. So all their songwriters are together. So the young guys, more inexperienced guys, are able to be part of that, and they're able to sit in a group and learn from the older guys, more experienced. Oh, this is how we do it. So yeah, but it's usually what usually happens is that the A&R or they hear a song somewhere, and we love this song, and they want to find out more who wrote this and more about it.
But they love it too when you have a good amount of songs in your catalog too. Because if it's just one song, they want to know, hey, how can we leverage
one hit wonder?
Yeah, they want to know, you know. But I mean, if it's a really, really good song, they're not going to hesitate to sign it. But it's always good if you have more songs in your catalog as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So are we ruling out the chances of people being able to find and approach publishers? Is that typically the practice in the industry, is wait to be found and then in the meantime keep writing good songs?
Yeah, I would say that. But also I would say this whole thing of getting connected to other songwriters. So rather than just sitting in your room. So there's a wonderful, this is, I mean, it's obviously been going on for a few years, but this is a season of collaboration, you know, which comes from community. And so, you know, whereas before the songwriter would be on their own in their room, writing their song, bring their song out. Now it's a time of being part of a community, writing together, collaborating.
Absolutely.
And then so songwriters flourish in that, but people get to know who's gifted in songwriting.
Oh yeah.
And so people start to talk and say, oh, I'd like this person to join us to write.
Right.
So the A&R guys at publishers, they start to hear about that. And
the publishers typically need to be involved to the point where they're discussing splits, for example, on behalf of their artists, or how does that work? So if an artist was doing a songwriting camp and they told their publisher, I'm going to be co-writing with X number of people, does the publisher get involved in saying, oh, well, my artist needs to have 50% or whatever? How does that dynamic work out?
No, it's more like the songwriters would discuss that.
Okay.
Usually before they leave.
Ideally before they start.
No, not even, because the way it works out.
No.
You can't. You have to talk about it at the end.
Yeah.
And it's really like, okay, what do you think's fair?
Because I have heard of people who say if there's 4 of them, they agree it's going to be equal, and that's it, and then they write. I know people who actually do that.
Yeah, you can do that, but it's usually, you know, if a song, someone contributes more.
Yeah, of course.
Everyone agree that, you know, they deserve more.
Yeah.
So
collaborate.
Yeah.
Lady T, you know, the thing I love about collaboration is it leads to innovation.
Yeah.
So collaborate, innovate. You know, it's just a great thing. But as part of that's part of the publisher's role to see their songwriters develop. So I personally, I had the privilege. I got to know Tim Hughes when he was 16.
Whoa.
And then he wrote "Here I Am to Worship" when he was 19. It was released when he was 21.
Oh wow.
So, I mean, but to see those young guys, they've got that gift in them, but they just need encouragement. And then nurturing. You need to nurture the songwriters, and so the publishing A&R role would be a lot of that. You know, being with them, going through their songs, or making sure each section's right, as good as it could be, or setting up a collaboration with another songwriter to help them with their lyrics or whatever.
One question I was hoping that we could touch on very quickly, because I'm conscious we've gone on the hour now, is licensing. So how does that work? How does that dynamic play out with a publishing deal or with a publisher when it comes to licensing the use of a song, especially if you've co-written with people? I mean, if it's the one person who wrote the song, they just can license it, I guess. So how does that dynamic work out or play out, I should say, licensing for other people to use? I mean, for example, you've talked about How Great Thou Art and how essentially that's the one and only song being managed or being looked after because people are constantly applying for licenses to use the song. So I'm trying to understand how that dynamic plays out, licensing and publishing.
Okay, well, there's two things. There's the one where people are asking permission to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you just, read through and kind of quite soon you can find, if it's a, I was going to say a suspicious request. But you have, you obviously have your percentages and how much that's going to be. But then there's also the other license where you the song is co-owned, and so you can sign off on your part. So I think it's fine. But then the person who wants to use it still has to contact the other company. Mm-hmm. So if you want to use a song and several companies are invested in it, publishing, you have to go around them all.
Now that's typically how it happens. What we just talked about collaboration. So there,
yeah.
If 5 different people wrote a song, you have to go around the houses, don't you? Unless they've got the same publisher, then it makes it easier.
Yes.
But music supervisors are people who put songs into TV, film, games, whatever. They want to be able to administrate to license a song that has one writer.
Yes.
Easy.
Yeah. Keith, I was going to say, today we haven't mentioned video games, and video games are like
extremely lucrative, right?
Yeah.
Extremely. But music supervisors, they say when some information comes on my desk and it's a song to be licensed and it has 5, 6, 7 writers, probably not going to be done.
Interesting. Right? Considering we just talked about collaboration, we've just shot ourselves in the foot.
1 writer, 2 writers at most. That's because music supervisors have a ton of work on their desk, right? Mm-hmm. And if I've got to clear 6 people, 6 different labels, 6 different publishers, this, that, splits, all that, I'm not doing that. It's just too much work. So 1 writer, 2 at most, so we'll probably do that, but have all that information there. If I have to call you up, so what's this? So what's the splits? And what's that? And what's this? And what the other? You don't want to go through that when it comes to licensing. You always want to make the job very easy for the person who's doing the licensing. Very easy. Yeah.
Good.
Right.
Like you said, Sarah, if all the writers are in one company.
Yeah, then it would be more straightforward.
That's probably the best.
Yeah. So, I mean, what would it typically look like then for an artist who has, got a song, they've managed to get a publisher, and would they just literally be waiting to hear that telephone call to say, oh, somebody wants to use your song in a movie, or we found this computer game that wants to use your song? Because some of us are very proactive. Some of us like to do things, and when you sign everything over to a publisher, you just now sit on your hands and wait for things to happen. Yeah. How does that kind of work out? Do you just sign everything off and be like, okay, I'm not going to look out for stuff. I'm just going to wait for you to give me a call and tell me an opportunity has come? Because if an artist is a proactive artist and is still keeping their eyes out and feeling the pulse, finds something, and the publisher is not necessarily being proactive, how do those conversations happen when the artist gets something and, I'm guessing, do they give a shit? I'm guessing not. But it'll be an interesting dynamic to see how that plays out.
Sarah, can you just say that it's really a partnership? It's not, you're not signing your songs. You're not giving your songs away. You still own your percent, and then you work with the publisher,
right,
to find ways.
That's a good call, actually.
Yeah, and then you find ways. How can we maximize this? And you have those discussions. I think I'm hearing this song here. I think I could go there. What do you is that a possibility? And then the publisher will come to you. No, I think it should be here, or I think I think this person could record it, or I think
Mm.
so. You work on it together,
Yeah.
and that's when it really happens. So say for a worship leader, they could be saying to the publishing company, "Well, every time I lead that song at a conference, I'm actually promoting it. I'm publishing it, and
Oh,
you are, but but it's but you're still doing it together."
Yeah. Yeah. But you also have to realize, and persons have to realize, the music business is not a sprint; it's a marathon.
yes.
Right?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Things take
Tiring.
time. I mean, you can get things done rather quickly, but things it's like a plant, man. You have to water it and water it and water it until it grows out, right? So things don't happen very quickly. But I think too, as Les says, if you're singing at a conference and you're singing your song, it's a good way to get you. You should get your song out there too. This is if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
not starting as a publisher, you have to do things surrounding that song to get some attraction to it. So like, especially when it comes to the metadata and putting out music on Spotify and all that kind of stuff, you have to be really active. You can't be a once every 6 months month artist, right? You got to have content, and not just music, just general content on
Yeah, yeah.
YouTube, on Twitter. You're active, you're engaging. That's what kind of helps with the whole situation.
There's something I was going to say earlier, but I forgot, and I'm going to say it now very quickly in terms of creating the metadata, because you were talking about the mood, you need to capture the BPMs and things like that, and the lyrics, obviously. So just a tip, something that I do personally, is when I start writing a song, and it's coming so handy now that I've just done my admin last week on all the platforms. When I start writing a song, I make notes of any scriptural reference that apply to the song. I make notes of any other references that I have in my mind in terms of the mood, what the song is about, in terms of the theme. Obviously, I write my lyrics in the right kind of structure, even when I'm making. I have folders that I create. I'm going into detail now, but I have folders that I create where I've got the lyrics as they develop as well. So I have all of that. And obviously, I have a spreadsheet where I keep all my ISRCs, my catalog numbers, and my barcodes, so the UPC code. So all of that needs. Obviously, I don't even know the half of it like Keith, but I'm just giving my own personal tips in case anyone would find that useful. Because what then happens is when you get to the point where you've now created the song and you need to upload all this metadata, because you could go onto Keith's website and get all this information, but you need to be creating it as you go along, is probably what I'm trying to say. Create and store as you go along, save it down as you go along, so that it's not a case where come day one where you need to submit the song to whichever platform, you're trying to figure out, oh, where do I get this, that, and the third? You already have all the information you need to provide to anyone because you've been gathering that data along the entire process. So you need to be organized with metadata. You can't just be putting things behind, in random notepads or whatever. You need to have, for each song, you need to have a folder. You need to keep your lyrics in place. You need to have a spreadsheet for all your ISRC codes, your UPC codes, your catalog numbers. For each song, if you can, try and think about what the theme is, what the genre is. Unfortunately, I don't know about the BPMs. So I can't boast of knowing the BPMs of my songs. But if you can, I mean, by all means, get all of that information and just kind of create the metadata as you go along. One other question I was going to ask actually around this whole BPM theme and all of that is on playlisting, and particularly to Keith, given that you know a lot about how these things work. How does metadata work in playlisting? Because putting the publishing and licensing to one side, that is the bread and butter of most artists in terms of getting onto playlists. And it'd be interesting to know if artists can take anything away from today's conversation around metadata and how that could potentially give them more chances of being playlisted, apart from doing your Facebook ads and pitching, directly to people. Some people submit a song and they have the right metadata in the songs that get them presumably onto the right playlist. So what can artists do more proactively and pragmatically in terms of the metadata that they create and submit with the music? Maybe they need to work with their producers, because last episode was actually about production, and we had 3 producers on the platform, and we're talking about how to make great records, and we talked about metadata very briefly. And it didn't seem like there was much awareness of the importance and criticality of metadata, particularly when mastering the song. So I think it will be interesting to get your view on how metadata can play an important role in particularly playlisting and opportunities on the streaming side of things.
Well, as an independent artist, especially, there's something you need to be aware of when you're delivering your music through like DistroKid, CD Baby, TuneCore. You do not need to embed metadata in the file. You do not need to embed metadata into the file, the WAV file I'm talking about. That's because the teams, there's three levels. You've got you who's delivering the music. You've got the team in the middle that's checking through that metadata before it goes to iTunes and Spotify, and then they deliver it. As far as I know, iTunes, if you deliver a song, your WAV, through one of the digital distributors with metadata in it, they strip it out. They will take all of it out. That's because you've already got the platform, you've already got everywhere you need to put your metadata, put the ISRC, upload the WAV, upload the cover art. That's what you need to do, right? And then they will then deliver that data to the stores. Every other time that you're delivering or sharing or sending your music anywhere else, you want to embed the metadata in the file. Every other time, right? Including the ISRCs, and the biggest thing that people miss, contact information, like an email address, a number. People forget that. Put the ISRC, put the publishing information, put the IPI code that comes from your publisher, and put as much information in there. You can even put the lyrics in there. You can put the cover art.
When you say embed in the track, are you talking about embed in the actual file or embed in an email? Because I'm not
in
sure
the file.
How do you embed your email address into an audio file?
So there are different platforms out there, like ID3 tags and all these different platforms. Even iTunes, you can use iTunes. When you go click info, it brings up this plate that has all the information that you can fill in. So it'll have name, song title, this, that, the other, and you fill that information in there, and that embeds it into the file, right? So especially when it's going to radio stations and even Spotify, there are curators on Spotify who look at that information inside the file. And if it's blank, well, we don't know who this is. We can't contact them, whatever. They may still put it in the playlist, but you want to have that data inside there, so that, I actually saw there's a young lady who works at Spotify. She said, please put your information there, especially your contact information. Because if it's a really great song, we want to contact you, there's no way of us contacting you, right? So that's one of the main ways. I think, one of the ways that, in terms of playlisting, there's other things you can do. Spotify has this playlister thing, like when you're just uploading a song, you can put it up for a playlist, to be included in the playlist, etc. And the other different things like that. But that's such a inside curated thing, right? It's just really about having your song prepped and ready for the market, having a good song. We still need good songs. Not because you released a song, it automatically should get all these things. The song needs to be good, right? It needs to be mixed and mastered really well, right? And remember, guys, mixing and mastering is when you mix and master for radio, for instance, it's a different mix and master for TV. It's a different mix and master for playing on Spotify. It's a different mix and master for various things. That's why iTunes has something called MFIT, mastered for iTunes.
Yeah.
They specifically master for iTunes Play, so that when customers are listening to the song, it's pleasant to the ear. So you have to look at all these things. Is this a sync song? Is this going to be synced? And there needs to be a master for that. All these kind of different things you got to look at and think about. So that's what I can say about playlisting.
That is really exciting. That's a lot of work, though. It sounds like you have to have different versions of the song, and I think it boils down to working closely with your engineer to have all these different versions and different masters of the song. So we're going to be wrapping it up very, very quickly, very soon, I should say. And I just want to thank everyone on Facebook and YouTube for your comments. If you have any questions, sorry, I was just looking to see if there were any questions. No questions yet, but if you have any questions, do drop them, because we're going to be wrapping up pretty soon. One last thing from both of you. Final word. on anything that you just want people to take away as the most pertinent point that you like to put across today. And then we will call it a night. So probably, Les, one key thing that you'd like people to really, really take away from today's session.
Okay, I'd just like to say that the songs are the stars. Okay? And there's really love is all about the song, and the song will outlive you. That the song is something that will needs to be looked after. And just one little thing, that's what I liked about the first time I went to Nashville. The thing that struck me was that the songwriter was honored. So in the UK, it was much more about the artist, the person up front. No one really talked about the songwriter. But when you got to Nashville, to be a songwriter was a great thing and had honor. And so honor the song and honor the songwriters.
That is really deep. I wonder if we need to address that culture. That is really, really deep. Wow. Keith?
I have a few things. The songwriter makes all the money.
That's true. And the publisher.
So write your own songs if you can.
But not just write your own songs, write for other people.
Yeah. Oh, yes, of course. And that.
Write for other people. The second thing is research. Do research. There's so much information on the net. It's not funny. On the internet, research. So I want you guys to research someone called Diane Warren. She is the most successful female songwriter in the world. All those songs from the 90s all the way up to now. She wrote all the Boyz II Men, I'll Make Love to You. She wrote all those songs. She's phenomenal. And she owns 100% of her publishing.
Whoa. How is that? I'm sorry, how is that possible?
How is that possible? Right?
Is the publisher getting zilch? How does that work?
She's the publisher.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, there you should do. You should have said she self-publishes. Then there, you should get 100%.
That's another thing I did want to say. When you sign up with PRS as a songwriter, this thing is more prevalent in America than it is in the UK. But in America, ASCAP especially, when you sign up as a writer, they want you to sign up as a publisher as well. So even if you are assigned to a publisher, you should have your own publishing as well.
Yes, yeah.
Very important, right?
I did actually want to touch on that. So whilst you're on that, because I did actually was on my notes, I kind of missed that self-publishing, because obviously not everyone's going to get a publishing deal or a publishing agreement. So whilst you're on the topic, maybe just talk a bit more about how we can actually fulfill that role of a self-published individual, a self-published artist.
Remember, guys, if you're only signed up for PRS for music, you're only getting one side of the coin. If you've never signed up with anybody else and just PRS for music, you're only getting one payment, and there are two payments to get. So to get your mechanical licensing and mechanical royalties, you want to sign up with a company called Centric Music or Song Trust in America, or there's another one called The Noise, right? But Centric Music and Song Trust are the biggest independent music publishing administrators. They have relationships with companies around the globe, and they will collect that mechanical royalties that PRS does not collect. PRS does not collect mechanical royalties. So if you're not with one of those organizations, you're not getting that side of the royalties. So it's a good idea. In America, most members of ASCAP or BMI are writers and publishers, right? Even if you get a publishing deal, you can still be your own publisher, and that publisher can probably sign your publishing company, and they will be your sub-publisher, right? But it's important that you kind of have that as well as an independent artist as well. Yes, MCPS collects mechanicals, but a lot of people are not with MCPS. Many people are not. They're just with PRS as a songwriter.
Correct.
Right? So that's what I'll say. And my last thing is your success in music is directly determined and proportionately predicated on the quality of your metadata. Cannot be stressed enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, that is really, really good. Oops. Really, really nice. I'm trying to hide the comments.
What are you going to say, Les?
There you go. Sorry, Les. You're going to say something.
Good song. And a good song.
And a
yeah,
good song.
It boils down to the song, because at the end of the day, the publisher, the publisher is trying to push a product. As we started by asking the fundamental 101, what is publishing? And publishing, or should I say the publishing agreement, is the publisher is looking after the song and looking out for opportunities to exploit the song. So it's all about the song. And if the song isn't viable, you're not even going to get the deal in the first place, but then it's not going to go anywhere. So it boils down to writing great songs and having, as you say, them. So the two things are the song and the metadata.
Excellent. Very good.
And that's how it is. So thank you so much, Les. Thank you so much, Keith. Keith is joining all the way from Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you so much for taking the time. I know you're always on Clubhouse and doing all these talks. Guys, if you're on Clubhouse, what's the room that you're in on Clubhouse? Because you talk about this quite often as well. So people can connect with you.
Mondays, every Monday at 11 or 12 Eastern. That's 12 will be about 5 o'clock your time. 11 will be about 4 o'clock your time.
Good, because I'm sure we're only scratching the surface in terms of what we need to do and know on metadata. So that's metadata. What did you call it again?
Metadata Mondays.
Metadata Monday. So every Monday. Let me just put that in the 1 second, so that at least people who watch it back can also catch it. Metadata.
I've had guests from Songtrust. I've had guests from Jackster. Jackster is another company you need to know about. I've had guests from that new credits verification platform called Muso.ai. I've had some really, really good guests talking about metadata. So join in if you can.
Yeah. Perfect. So I'm not really a Clubhouse person just yet, but if I do come onto Clubhouse, I'll be joining the Metadata Mondays on Clubhouse. But no, this has been really, really, really informative. I've learned so much. I am literally going to watch this back because there's just a lot to take in. No, seriously, but it's been great. So thank you so much, Keith, for joining all the way from Trinidad and for the knowledge that you've poured. Somebody mentioned in the comments that this is free consultation. So thank you for your free consultation, both of you. It really means a lot. And I obviously value your friendship as individuals and your knowledge and just the wealth of experience that you have and your contribution to the scene. I'm sure and I'm hoping that when people watch this tonight or watch it back, there'll be something they can take away that would help them get better in their journey as creatives, as independent artists, as Christian and gospel musicians and artists. So thank you so much, guys, for joining, for watching on Facebook and on YouTube, and for commenting. I've been seeing lots of comments. I've seen Lady T, Tayo, TJ Dairo, the list goes on, Mike Fitzpatrick. Thank you so much for joining, for sharing. And if you haven't shared, share this, because I'm sure there's somebody somewhere who can benefit from these conversations. And if you haven't subscribed, my YouTube channel is Sarah Téibo Music. You're probably watching me on here now. Subscribe, and I think there's a notification bell you can press as well, so that when we go live next week, you can actually find out and you can know and you can join. Next week, we're going to be talking about music marketing. Now, that is another topic that's really, really dear to my heart, particularly because sometimes we don't know all there is to all the different ramifications, of music marketing and the creative side of music marketing, because the world is evolving and so are marketing techniques. So join us next week for music marketing on Equilibrium Live. But until next week, guys, thanks again for hanging. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for engaging. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Les. Stay safe. Have a great night rest and see you next week.
Take care.